Alright Diablo players, let's talk about it. How can you 100x your damage? Yes, 100x your damage. How do you really get powerful in Diablo 4? This is a question that I wanted to answer as it's something that a lot of people may not be aware of. So I want to go ahead and start off the video by specifically going over attack power is nothing. I've had a lot of people talk about how to increase your attack power, and that's not what this video is about. We're talking about actual raw damage numbers to get into the billions and billions or trillions of damage depending on what season it is, as this video will apply to even seasons in the future. So depending on which video guide that you may be watching, if you're using Mobalytics, you're using Max Roll, or D4 builds, it doesn't matter. All of these will apply. When you guys are copying other people's builds, this will all apply when you are looking at a build to make sure that you guys copy it exactly. But the first thing I want to stress here is that attack power is nothing. I actually advise Blizzard to specifically delete this. But I want to go over kind of why your attack power may not be matching the other streamers or another person's build guide that you may see online. So the first thing I want to go over is specifically maxing out your glyphs. This is something that you're going to be doing over the course of time. It's not like you go in for a second and you max out the glyph. It's going to take time. You're going to have to level up your glyphs slowly because as you increase in power, you can go up in the pit tier difficulty. But it's specifically getting the upgrade to 46, giving you a legendary bonus power. In this case, it's going to be like stun grenade damage, gets a 30x multiplier. Remember, you have 5 glyphs. You know, you can vary in terms of like the multiplier, but just this alone will be 100x damage. Remember, x is the multiplier, it is multiplicative, but even the additive damage, because Death Trap Rogue is the most popular rogue build this season and one of the best, you also get the stun grenade bonuses applying to Death Trap. So not only does the glyph go from 100 if you max out like the amount of dexterity in the range, but you can increase this by putting in additional nodes, which will require more Paragon points. But if you reach the bonus here, you can see it goes from 100 to 900 damage. A lot of people may forget that you can get those bonuses, and some bonuses may be different. There's ones that may just be like regular flat damage, which may be 10%, but you can get maybe a 15% if the target is vulnerable. It's like vulnerable or crit damage. So keep in mind, some of those nodes, depending on where they are located, they can also get an increase on the glyph, being that it increases the rare glyph nodes in the range, or it could be the magic ones. So be on the lookout specifically for glyphs, and it depends on, of course, the character that you're playing. But yeah, you can get over 100x damage just here alone with your power. Another thing I wanted to mention that is very important is that every item, when you're looking at specifically like a build, like if I was to take this one over here, you can see that pretty much every single build going forward in any build guide will always show what's called a greater affix or an ancestral item. And what that is it's going to make the item roll basically perfect and stronger than a regular max rolled item. And this is very key for certain builds. Some builds you don't really need to get a perfect item in terms of the greater affixes. Some you have to for the build to function properly. For example, the Beastfall boots, you need to specifically reach a certain number for the Banished Lord's Talisman item to work properly. So when you guys are looking at any build guide, it could be like the Harlequin Crest getting the greater affix on cooldown with triple critted Masterwork. This is something that's very important on builds, but at the bare minimum for every player, you do need to try to get your items to be at least 1 greater affix. This is because you cannot fully masterwork your item, or the item power simply won't be there. And if you guys want to acquire more of these, you could just play on the higher tormented difficulty and you will be able to acquire more. The ideal goal is to just do boss rotations again and again until you get that item that you need with that greater affix. Another thing that actually matters a lot, you can actually get another 100x damage just here alone, and I want to show you guys exactly with some showcasing of some numbers here. So if you look at certain items in the game, when you get the legendary aspect, if it's not a greater affixed item, it can never roll the highest one. You can always imprint from a salvaged one, and you can throw that bonus on. But for example, this legendary aspect that we're looking at has to do with like a stun grenade build, which actually works with Death Trap. But you can see the bonus goes from 25 to 45. That is a 20 X damage difference. And if you have, let's say, 5 offensive pieces of items, well, you do 20 times 5, and that's another 100x damage. You're missing out on a lot of damage when you don't have all of the aspects, you know, maxed out. And I'm gonna be honest, I still don't have every one of my aspects maxed out. Now, the easy way to actually get that aspect that you want is simply to engage in trading. I already have lots of trading guides up, but basically you go to Diablo.trade and you try to buy that aspect with the perfect rolled stat on it, and then you go ahead and salvage it and you have it permanently unlocked on your account. But keep in mind, every single season you have to re-get that legendary aspect to be perfect. Again, it only rolls on the greater affixed items, specifically the ones with the little stars. But again, this is another 100 extra damage if you have several pieces that are, you know, depending on the build that you play, some can go up to like 50x on like a two-hander. You're missing out on a lot of damage. And again, if multiple of these aren't perfect, you're missing out on big damage. And then another thing I wanted to mention is that you really want to have every single item 12 out of 12. Now, I also mentioned with correct masterworking. On certain builds, it's more important than other builds, but specifically if you're playing a build like, let's say you're playing like a bard build that really needs that cooldown reduction, you really want that legendary, like, unique power to be actually perfect. Sometimes this could be the difference between a build functioning and a build that doesn't function. It's actually kind of a problem with Sorceress, with cooldown reduction. Every single season with a Masterworking on Harlequin, it is so critical that you get your cooldown up high enough for certain builds. And unfortunately, I want to say that for a lot of people, getting a greater affix on a Mythic unique, I get it. It's totally just, it seems kind of unachievable. But also Season 8 right now, this is technically the easiest season we've ever had to get Mythic uniques, and I just recently dropped video guides on how to acquire the Mythic uniques with the new Spectral Ash turn-in. I mean, if you have been playing the game for a while and you have a bunch of the Ash left over, in about 10 minutes you can get 1 Spark, and you can keep on repeating this again and again. And the thing is you would just craft a Harlequin or a random unique, just praying that you get that cooldown reduction. This is one where I'm going to say most people will probably not be interested in going for. I farmed for a cooldown reduction Harlequin. It took a very long time, but it's kind of just luck too. Honestly, it just takes lots and lots of crafting. You will be guaranteed 1 GA on all the mythics, and it's basically a 1 out of 4 chance because that's how the mythics work. And you can maybe even get multiple GA. So yeah, but for the most part, yeah, I get this. It's totally annoying, but also the masterworking is another annoyance in the game. But when you're looking at a build guide and it calls to get a certain amount of resources or a certain amount of cooldown reduction, or on certain builds, it may require a very specific stat to reach a threshold for a certain bonus, like your mana needs to be above 100 for like a crit bonus on like Sorc. There's a lot of these weirder things depending on the build that you play. You just need to specifically get the correct masterworking. I know it's frustrating, but you just got to keep on doing Nightmare Dungeons again and again and again. Sometimes you got to reset 30 times. That's the reality of the way that the game works. Now, this one's actually pretty easy, is to max out your boss powers. This is actually pretty big, specifically for the Hatred's Embrace, which is in a lot of different build guides. You can get up to 50% crit, and so you're missing out on a big source of damage. And speaking of damage, I want to go over this, Dex. Every single build in the game, if you can, you want to get what's called overpower and crit, and you want to get vulnerability. Every single build in the game will want vulnerable damage no matter what. You want to apply vulnerability, but also getting the vulnerable damage is totally fine to get as well, because you get a 20x multiplier here. With crit, you get a 50x bonus, and with overpower, you can go up to 50x once you're at maximum life, but you also get increased damage once you have even more HP. But the thing with overpower is, I'm going to be real with you guys, not every class can overpower. There are certain builds that rely off of overpower. In fact, there's a lot of builds that rely on overpower to get a huge bonus in damage, but almost every single build in the game that's meta will do 100% crit and 100% application of the vulnerability applied. These are basically on almost every single build. The one exception with crit is you don't need it in damage over time builds, so keep that in mind if you are doing that as well. Another thing that is actually very important that can actually increase your DPS literally by double is that whatever skill that you're using, again, I'm using a lot of examples from Death Trap Rogue because that's kind of the thing that I've been playing here this season, but any other skill, whether you're playing a fireball build or something, when it says a chance for Death Trap to deal double damage, you may need to masterwork this, or you may need to go ahead and actually get this on a different piece of gear. Some uniques are different, like the if you go to, let's say, the Necromancer, there is a unique on the helmet that actually gives you the ability, if we go to Deathless Visage, there are uniques that kind of break this rule, but like there's chance for like your skills to cast twice. This is absolutely critical, because if you don't happen to have this, you know, maxed out, you're losing out on your chance to get double damage. Some of the abilities will say projectiles to cast twice, and some will say double damage. Either way, it's roughly about the same. Sometimes it's better to have the projectiles cast twice because you have a lucky hit chance to do X, Y, and Z, but this is literally doubling your damage in the game. It is a pretty big upgrade, and certain rolls on things need to be multiple GAs on certain builds to actually function. When you guys are looking at top tier builds for people's builds guides, whatever website you're looking at, sometimes their gear is absolutely just to the max, and I want you guys to have kind of realistic expectations here, which we'll talk about. But there is one exception to the crit on a dot build. The one exception is on Spiritborn. So even though I'm telling you guys you want to have overpower in every single build, some builds cannot do it, but every build will want to apply vulnerability. You need that. Another thing I want to mention is to not forget your runes in the game. There's a lot of people that like completely forget to make the rune words. Cax is literally 100x your damage. It is a massive source of bonus damage. If you guys go over here, there's one over here, Cax, just to show you guys. Yes, you get 100% extra bonus damage. Now, some of these only last a short duration, but if you can apply the thing infinitely, which some builds can pretty much do, yeah, you're losing out on 100x damage there as well. That's why I'm mentioning, when I say like 100x your damage, it's not just, you know, clickbait. Some people need to realize that you can get 500x, you know, you can go crazy with a lot of these numbers, and that's why I'm trying to show you all of them. Maxing out your gems, this is not going to get you, you know, 100x, but it'll add a little bit more, and once you start adding more multipliers, this matters a lot. And also, another thing I want to mention is to keep your expectations realistic. When you're like at Paragon 50, and you're looking at a build guide, and the build guide is like, you know, maybe Paragon 200 or 300, like in this one right here, you also have to realize that your build simply just is still progressing, and that's okay. But don't expect that if you're level like 50 in your Paragon points to have the same results as someone that's playing at a Paragon 200 or 250. 250 is kind of like the area where I'd say most of the builds are pretty much done. You get a small amount of damage, but a 200 is kind of where I would say at 200, if your build still sucks, you did something wrong, unless you are missing pieces of gear. If you copy the build correctly and you have about 200-ish Paragon points, you're still, you know, progressing, but you do want to max out your glyphs and your Paragon points, which is simply just going to take time. Ideally, though, 200-ish is kind of where I'd say most people, at least with Season 8, kind of get burnt out. Previously in Season 7, like 250 was pretty comfortable, I would say, for most people to reach. But honestly, hitting Paragon 300, it's like 30 hours a day. It's like a secondary job. I get it. So don't worry about getting Paragon 300, okay? 250 is where your build is pretty much done. Like it's just like extra icing. Another thing I gotta mention here is you need the mythics, okay? I know that there's video guides, even I've uploaded video guides where I say you can play this without the mythic, because there are certain builds where like the mythic doesn't make the build come up online. There's some exceptions, like if you're playing an Andariel build, you can't really replace Andariels because it's required for the build to function. But you do need the mythics if you want the same results, okay? The best explanation that I gotta give is, yes, you can replace some. Like, I've made build guides where I have a mythic version and a non-mythic version, and the goal of the non-mythic version is for you guys to play until you get the mythics, and then you can kind of expect similar results. But if you don't have the similar item, you can't really expect the similar results, especially with the mythics. Now, in some cases, it's not as bad for certain builds, but some builds is night and day difference. The best way that I want to go ahead and give you guys an example, if you're trying to make a pizza, if you're replacing the pizza sauce or the tomato sauce with just ketchup, it's not the same. It's close, but it's simply not the same. Another thing I wanted to mention here specifically is that most builds with rank 1 gameplay, when you guys are looking at top builds and you want to copy it, because, you know, that's something good to do. I'm glad that you guys are looking for like the rank 1 build. But a lot of these builds, guys, they're going to have 3 to 4 greater affix items with perfect rolls, perfect masterworking, and they also may have like a huge amount of paragons that they have. And if you're trying to copy the build and you're like, well, my build doesn't do that, well, unless you have that time, you're more than likely getting 3 to 4 greater affixes on every single piece of gear. I pretty much never have this. And when I try to upload my build guides, I try to make them realistic for most players. I don't try to make it so you have to have, you know, triple masterworking on a certain piece of gear, but some builds, they will require it to meet the threshold. And if you don't happen to hit those thresholds, or if it's not like right now, there's a really big problem in the rogue community where there are a lot of builds that require masterworking to hit triple crit, and you have to have GA on, specifically cooldown reduction on Beastfall boots, and you have to have GA on the maximum resource. And to get that, the average player is simply just not going to get it. If you played like Path of Exile, it's like, yeah, just get a Headhunter, get a Mage Blood, get a Temporalis, and you're ready to go, guys. It's a huge difference between getting these pieces of gear to have multiple GAs, just as a heads up, okay? And then this is one of the things I really want to stress when you guys are looking at any build guides. Is that you must copy the build exactly. These are very specific with certain builds, like for example on the Death Trap Rogue. I see this a lot, even reading comments from like videos I've uploaded, whereas like people are saying, how come your build has no cooldown? Well, I mean, I literally have it in the build guide to show you guys how to get all the cooldown reduction, and I get it, sometimes you want that fast, you know, like just give me the build guide and you go to the website and you try to copy it. I would really recommend you guys, even if it's not my build guide, if it's someone else's, watch the video in its full entirety. It probably will answer the question that you have, whether it's cooldown, what numbers you need to hit, what masterworking, why your build isn't doing the same thing as the content creator's build. It's because you just got to pay attention to the video. You just got to make sure that you copy the build exactly, and that's why. It could be maybe very specific cooldown breakpoints that you need to reach for these, you know, shouts, or certain abilities need to be active, or overlapping cataclysm. It could be snapshotting. You need to learn these mechanics for the build in order for it to work. And another thing I wanted to stress for specifically like certain builds, like if one player can use the ultimate 10 times and the other player's like, well, I don't have my cooldowns up, you know, I can only use 2 of them in the amount of time that, let's say, the other player, because he has the cooldown, can use it, like, you know, only 2 times versus 10. And you may think, well, okay, then he's losing 80% of the damage, right? That's actually not wrong. They're actually losing out on more. There's so many of these different buffs that have a set duration, and there's a lot of other things like, on the rogue, you have this ability to gain a bunch of shield, and if you're unable to gain the shield, which this, we can go use this as an example over here, because this is actually big for a lot of builds. I know I'm using rogue as like most of these examples, but I'm telling you guys that it is actually really key to actually look into specifically the key passives sometimes, as well as looking at the passives on the tree. So for example, if we use the rogue over here, there's one called Second Wind. So when you spend all this resource, you gain a bunch of maximum life as barrier. Now that does 2 things. That gives you survivability, but it also gives you barrier so you don't take HP damage, so your overpower damage is even stronger. So you're actually losing out on not only 80% of damage loss just from like, okay, you know, one person casts 10 ultimates, the other person casts 2. You're also missing out on all these other bonuses where they have like some sort of duration where it's like a crowd control that only affects for a short duration, or it can like fall off. There's a lot of these other things that you'll have to take into consideration. But anyways, hopefully this video, guys, really helps you guys out. And again, I really want to stress this, and I'm really begging for Blizzard to delete attack power specifically. This number is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually getting your character to, instead of do, you know, 1 million damage to 100 million, you can get so much more damage with all of the methods that I mentioned. So hopefully this video guide helped you guys out. If there's any other good info, definitely let other Diablo players know in the comment section below, and I can update this video, as I think it's a very key and important video for the Diablo community to actually understand, you know, where you're going wrong with certain damages, because some damage is better than others, because, well, you can get, you know, thousands and thousands of crit damage, but if your crit strike chance is like 10%, well, there you go. Then you can kind of upgrade your damage by getting more critical strike chance versus getting more crit damage at certain intervals. But what's that number? I couldn't tell you exactly for every single build, but again, use these and it will really help your character gain a lot of power in the game. But that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. I know this one was a longer one, but there are so many ways to upgrade your power. But if you're new here, hit subscribe to the bell and you'll be getting more info very soon on how to increase your damage, survivability, and more guides. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.